Cosa posso fare per l'introduzione di questo episodio international? Ho molta voglia di fare qualcosa di intelligente, ma non tutto ciò che faccio posso essere intelligente e divertente, giusto?
Also vielleicht überspringe ich das Intro dieses Mal. Es ist nicht wie ich haben eine Menge Leute, mir zu sagen, sie lieben diesen Teil der Show oder so etwas.
Ben, eu acho que se esta é a minha última, é melhor eu fazer-lhe uma boa.
Alors qu'est-ce que je peux faire? Peut-être. Non. Je pourrais le faire? Non. Alors peut-être cela? Non.
Then again, come to think of it, maybe I should be consulting a wiser sage. In the immortal words of Ricky's mom, Mrs. Smith. You don't need words to speak the international language. The language of love. And everybody knows I love to go indie now. Hello everybody, so glad you could be here. You know, in our first two episodes, we've talked to some amazing indies. Most of them, however, have been all around the United States. But there are indies all over the world, and in today's show, we'll meet a few of them. So let's get started. We'll start in the UK with our first guest, Daniel Harding. He's a brilliant filmmaker whose production company, 23 and a Half Films, has produced some of the most innovative and fun short films out there. They're ace. You'll go arse over elbow for them, and Bob's your uncle.
Photo, camera, Kinesis.
How long have you been making movies?
That's an easy question because the film company is named after the age that I started. So what am I now? I'm almost 28, so 4.5 years. 4.5 years. Properly, been making movies what I would deem properly. You know, I bought a new camera once I left university, and then that's when I took it seriously as opposed to kind of just mucking around and doing little bits and pieces. But yeah, making movies 4.5 years.
Did you study film at university?
I did, yeah, but it wasn't really a film production course. It was like a media practice course. So I did a little bit of everything. I did documentary, I did photography, I did sound. It kind of gave you a wider spectrum to work with as opposed to just doing a standalone film course. It was a little bit of everything, and then by the time you got to the final year, you did a film project or a digital project or a photography project. But I did film, obviously.
Wow. But doing the sound and everything, that's a crash course in indie filmmaking right there.
Exactly. I recommend doing it this way purely because it gives you a little bit of knowledge about everything, which I think, coming from an indie perspective, you know, if you're going to do it a lot by yourself, you need to know how to do the sound. You need to know how to set up a camera. You need to know how to write. You need to know all these different aspects, which maybe some filmmakers are only ever thinking to themselves, this is the area that I'm going to go into, whereas I was able to kind of get a much wider perspective of what needed doing. My goal was to just make films, make something and then have people see it, and that comes through social media at the moment. It's like you build your following online, and I feel there's almost a guarantee that I can make a film now and an X amount of people are going to see it.
Hello?
Hi, I'm Natalie.
I'm Charles. I just had the oddest feeling.
Me too, actually.
I guess that's what it comes down to, is that if you can find an idea that you know it can be shot somewhere, then the difficulty is taken away from you. Okay, there's a seafront, like a 20-second walk from my house. Why don't we do something on the seafront? And then you're thinking of ideas that you have that could benefit from being shot on the seafront.
Should I give you my number?
Sure. And you were...
Natalie.
Natalie. Shall we do something on Saturday evening?
Yeah, if you're free.
I am between 7 and 9:45 p.m.
It's important that you do kind of know what's coming next and what possibly is going to come after, because it just saves time. If you're only ever concentrating on the thing that you're doing now, and then when that's done, you're kind of then looking at yourself thinking, okay, what now? And then it could be another year before you even get round to making something again. So if you can kind of get the ball rolling on something whilst you're finishing something else, it just means that, yeah, you've got this quick turnover of projects and you've always got something to be doing. That's the...
Do you have future aspirations, or are you just sticking truly to your short-term roots right now and continuing down the short film route?
So that it's been drafted. The feature's been drafted, but that's coming maybe 3 projects down the line. I've kind of got a bit of a production line going on at the moment, but that's definitely an aspiration. The feature film I want to make next year, but I'm making the necessary steps towards it, as opposed to just making one short film and then thinking that I'm capable of making a feature. I'm learning by making short films. I'm making mistakes. I'm learning what works and what doesn't work. I'm learning about festivals. I'm learning about, releasing content online. And hopefully by the time that I actually make a feature, I'll be much more prepared for that process, because it's so much bigger, right? And Killer Bird, which I think you've watched, that was a stepping stone towards making a feature. That was testing the water of me saying to myself, okay, how can I handle 4 characters? How can I handle, someone turning up 3/4 of the way through, as opposed to sort of establishing your relationship with two characters earlier on? That was me pushing the boundary of what I could do within the short form. But because that was so difficult, and because it taught me a lot about what you can and can't do with short films, I've since gone back and made another film which relies on just 2 characters and 1 setting, because I felt comfortable going back to that environment, and I knew I could do it. Short films are for filmmakers, I think. We're the only ones who are really interested in them, I think, because we know that they're stepping stones, essentially. They're not the means to an end. They're helping us get to somewhere. They're helping us learn our trade and sharpen our tools and things like that. I just don't think they have the mass appeal yet. It'd be nice if they did. I think if you could show short films before features at a cinema, for example, even if it was just a 10-minute short film, I think that would be a great idea. But it just doesn't seem to happen.
What's your best advice for filmmakers who want to get started in this business?
You just got to do it. That's it. You just got to do it. You just don't think about it. Even established actors have asked me how you go about making a film. You just got to do it. It comes down to whether you do it or not, really. I mean, I have no other advice really apart from just doing it. But I guess that's easier said than done for me, because I have all the equipment and I have all the camera and the editing software. But I've only got that stuff because I did it. I went about getting it. I made the sacrifices that were needed to be made. I saved up whilst I was at university, which wasn't easy, so that by the time that I left university, I had enough money to buy the equipment and do it myself. And then I learned by doing for the next 3 or 4 years, and that was it. It was hard because you spend days on your own, long periods of time on your own, because you're editing or you're writing, and people will call you up and say, let's go and do something. You have to be quite strict with yourself and say no, because I'm doing this or that. So that becomes quite hard, but you've got to be prepared to do it. That's it, really. It's just do it.
Do you have a crew, or do you do most of the crewing yourself?
Yeah, it's all me.
So you don't. How do you arrange sound and all of that?
So I mean, it's not just me, but I'm not paying any other crew members. I'm the only, you know, I wouldn't say professional, but I'm the only person who's doing this as a career. So with the missing hand, I had my friend who was just holding the microphone. I had another friend who's also a director who was doing makeup. So, you know, you get favors from people and you give them roles and you give them a job to do, and you say, you know, as long as you do this for me and be honest and say when I've, you know, they've got their headphones on, they can tell when something isn't clean. You just say, just tell me. If you don't get a clean dialogue recording, just say and we'll roll it again. So you just have to be, you know, aware of what other people are doing whilst you're doing your own thing, which for me is running around like a headless chicken trying to do everything. And then beyond that, you know, you're doing a lot of post-production roles yourself. And it can get quite insular, and you feel like you're the only person who's involved in the project, which I don't like, because film's collaborative, right?
So the big question I have for you, and then I'll let you go, is I know you kind of see smirking. You already know it's coming, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you've already said you consider yourself an indie. So what does it mean to you being indie?
Freedom to do whatever you want, I think.
Do you like being indie? Would you prefer to be in a studio system, or do you like being indie and you're going to keep yourself there once you start making features?
I don't think you can say that I will ever turn it down, because until you've tried it, it's hard to know which you prefer. But what I'm doing right now, I feel extremely lucky that I have the freedom to do it and do it on a regular basis. You know, it's not something that I have to wait 3 or 4 years. I don't need to remortgage my house to do it. I have all my own equipment. I have the ability to write. I have the ability to cast actors and edit the film. I can do it all myself. That's what I meant by freedom, is that I can literally make a short film today if I wanted to. There's nothing stopping me. Whereas if you're working for a studio or you're not so independent, then yes, you are, you know, at the beck and call of someone else. You're waiting for a producer, you're waiting for a casting agent, you're waiting for other people to kind of tell you when you can do your film. But obviously there's restrictions to being indie at the same time as there's the freedom, you know, so it's kind of, it's hard to judge. But I love it. I feel extremely lucky that I'm in the position that I am, and I'm making films that I want to make, and people are watching them and people seem to like them. And I'll continue to do that, I think, until my situation changes. There's no reason why I need to stop.
And you touched on the marketing aspect of what you do. You said that the internet's been a valuable tool to you. As social media, that's generally how you market. And how much time do you spend marketing your films?
Well, it's slowed down a lot recently, because it's kind of self-managing almost now. Now that I've got such a following, I don't really need to do much. In the earlier days, it took a lot of my time, because, you know, you're trying to build a following, you're trying to connect with people, and by doing that, you need to spend time. You need to spend that time online doing it. No one's going to kind of come looking for you unless you're there, you know, looking for them. So social media, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love that it, you know, enables me to do what I want to do, and connect with people and have them watch my films and have them talk to me about what they're doing, and have a dialogue about anything. You know, it's great for that. But at the same time, I just hate it. But in the nicest possible way.
Concern for the indigenous Sussex wildlife mounts today as an escaped and dangerous bird continues to cause panic and fear. Local people have been urged to stay indoors until the bird has been captured and returned to the proper authorities.
Reports suggest that the escaped rhea-type bird is highly volatile, likely to be violent and unpredictable when approached. Last seen roaming the South Downs as frightened members of the local community fear to leave their homes.
We could capture it.
Capture what?
The bird.
okay, I've made a bunch of films now that are online. How can I progress? How can I get something back from that? Where's the next step? Where do I go from here? So that's where I'm at figuring now, is knowing what I can do with my content. What can I do with the films that I'm making?
I've had the distinct pleasure of being able to watch almost all of Daniel's films, including a couple he hasn't released yet. And I can tell you that you're going to want to keep the names 23 and a half films and Daniel Harding in your memory banks. The future is very bright for this young man. We'll be right back after this.
My name is Kelly Schwartz, and I'm with the Indie Film Factory. You are watching Go Indie Now. Check it out. It's awesome.
Let's continue our pursuit of finding indies abroad. Our next stop is Japan. That's where we're going to meet author Jin Okubo. And not only is he an American living in Japan, but he is a male writing in a traditionally female-dominated genre in romance.
Vous saurez qu'il est temps de tourner la page lorsque vous entendrez la sonnerie, comme ceci.
An artist, what appeals to you about Japan?
As an artist, what appeals to me about Japan is the mountains. It's just when I first started writing, I wanted to write a memoir, which ended up becoming a fantasy, which is a book that I'm still in the process, which is a series that I'm still in the process of finishing. I will release the 2 books today. This probably by the end of this month, or the beginning of June, somewhere around there, after I get the covers done. But just the mountainside, and when you look at them, you can see this is the problem with living in California. You get some great mountains, but you don't get that spookiness of the mountains, because the California mountains have been, pre-burned, pre-cleared. They're nice little safe havens. Of course, yes, we still have some forest fires, but a lot of it has been cleared away, a lot of the brush. When you look at the mountains here in Japan, they're overgrown, they're jungle-like, they're sadistic looking. And yeah, if you go tromping out there, you don't know what you're going to run into. And so you have that whole image. I don't know if you know this, but the guy that invented Zelda, Legend of Zelda, he made the game based on his childhood of going up into the mountains and getting lost and going into these caves and doing this whole thing, and that's where Zelda came from. So this idea, and I live next to the Nagano Mountains, when you go driving to work, if you're in the States, you see the overgrown mountain, it's, one match and the whole thing goes up in flames. Everyone will be calling it in and it'll be cleared out and cleaned. Here, you don't see that. I mean, there's trees that have been dead and lying there, hanging off toward the road, about to fall off for the past 5 years. So, you know, that's a fantasy writer's dream right there, to see that every morning.
Do you immerse yourself in it and write when you're out there?
I like to go out and write outside, just because it's wet. And I don't mean it's wet like, oh, it rained today. I mean, it's humid, hot, and you're going to be sticking to everything. Going out to the mountains, you know, in a humid country like Japan, and Japan is tropical, almost subtropical, but I would say tropical in the sense of the humidity. I'll give you a really, really good example. Last week on Wednesday, it was around 28 degrees Celsius, which, to give you a nice idea, it's around 90 degrees to 95 degrees, somewhere around there. With just being out of winter, like the week before, it was -1. So that's the jump. I would like to go out and write. I did. Right now I don't have the time, but I did go out and paint before. Like I would sit out there and paint outside. I would draw outside. I have a sketchbook where I've just drawn things and painted things, and just for the hell of it, you know.
How has your writing changed since you've been in Japan?
Well, when I was in the States, my personality is, if you tell me I'm not going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if you tell me I did something that I didn't do, I'm going to do it. And when I was in college, when I was in university, I went to a writer's seminar. And this is where this big name writer comes in, you know, and they speak and they tell you how the business is and how everything works for the people who want to be writers. And I went there and sat down, and this big name writer, who I had no idea who he was, I've never read any of his work, but apparently he said that everyone had, sits down and goes, okay, I'm going to tell you this honestly and clearly. There's no money in poetry, and there's no money in fiction. If you want to make money and make a career at writing, you're going to write fact, and you're going to write training manuals. So if you want solid work, you're going to write training manuals, basically, he said. And that's what he does, I guess. But I sat there and I was like, no money in poetry? So I went home and I wrote 60 pages of poetry that night. I was very into poetry, and I love to write poetry about everything. That ended about 1999 when I decided to come live in Japan. That poetry ended. And I had given up on a lot of writing. It wasn't until 2003, 2004, that I really got back into writing. And the reason why I really got back into writing was because I had just gone through a divorce. I was very unstable, and I wanted to write to explore these feelings that came out. And my very first writing shows that. You have, and that's why I realized the joy about writing poetry is it's very scene based, and you wanna provide as much emotion as you can from the scenery. And the joy of my first writing is very scene based.
How did you go from into the deviation of romance? What led you there?
Romance. The thing that made me want to write a romance, we'd have to go farther back. The thing that brought me to romance originally was Something About Mary. And if we go back, yes, I've read Shakespeare in school. I read Little Women. Basically, when I was in school, you were given a block of books and you had to read them.
Sure.
And I read them because I was given a block of books that I had to read. You can't sit there and enjoy, read these books and give me a report. Okay, I'll read the books and give you a report. But what really opened the door for me about romance was Something About Mary. It was original. It was an original, to say the least, it was an original take on the idea of romance. You still had the loser guy who got the girl in the end after he came back, but he was still a loser. she was still this hot, wonderful woman. He was still a loser. He was still this guy that had nothing to gain. And I wasn't seeing that. And when I first put pen to paper saying, I'm going to write a romance, I sat there going like, I want to write a romance, but I want it to be like the romance is really in real life. You know, romance isn't flowers and candy. You know, sometimes it's a screwdriver to your brain where they just keep just grinding it out. And I wanted to write a romance from my experiences because they were most true to me. And when you ask any writer, they say, write from what you know. And I said, okay, fine, I'm going to write from what I know. And I put together an amalgamation of every single woman that I had dated at that time. A lot of the women that came after my divorce was put into this story. And you see that there's a lot of obsession, there's a lot of denial of satisfaction in the way this romance works, because that's how real romance is supposed to work. That's how. And what I wanted to do when I was breaking into this romance genre, and was sit there and go, this is the story of a romance from a man's point of view, not just what he's feeling and seeing, but actually how he works his way through to make it a romance. Because if you read my book, most likely by the halfway point you can see like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy, you know? And we've all had that conversation with our friends. Why are you with her?
Yeah.
Why? You know, why do you keep going back? Why?
What's the most surprising thing that readers tell you about your story?
I've gotten a lot of emails about the book, which I would hope they would write reviews instead of just sending me emails. But one of the emails, a person wrote a review and sent me an email, and it was interesting for me. He said that my prose was weak. And I don't understand what it means by when someone says your prose is weak. And I was sitting there going like, it's not a poetry book. And then I started to view more into it, and I can see what he's trying to say. And the writer who read my book and reviewed it, he ended up giving it a good review, but that stuck in my brain. You know, my prose is weak. And I think it's because of this mentality of we're all accustomed to this one level of romance. When we pick up a romance book, we expect A, B, and C. And we don't have a way of dealing with D, let alone E and F. We don't have a way of dealing with these unknown variables that are not supposed to be in a romance. And I thanked him for his comments. I thanked him for his email. And I went back through and I corrected some other typos that he found for me. And this is for any indie writer out there. No matter how many editors you hire, no matter how many people you employ, typos will get missed. And this is true, there are books that I have picked up, one of them by Stephen King, where I picked up the book and it had a typo in it. So a typographical error will pop out now and then. Of course, it was one typo for 800 pages, so it's really good. So I go back and I always go back, and if someone tells me there's a typo error here or there's a word choice error here, I will go back and I will always find it and I will fix it.
What has been the best way for you to get the word out about your book, and how do you use the overseas thing to your advantage, or have you found a way?
The largest thing is that if my book's not topping the bestseller lists anywhere and everywhere, my book will not be stocked in Japanese stores. That goes the same for selling online. I hear many authors go, well, you just have to go to a book signing. You have to go down to your local bookstore and ask them to set you up. It's not a problem. Or you have the other end of the spectrum. Oh, I was able to build up my name because I went from bookstore to bookstore to bookstore and I pumped myself up. Yeah, I can't do that. And then I have the difficulty of promoting online. Actually, when I first wrote this book, when I first wrote my first romance book, I submitted it to a romance publisher. I did, and
Right.
The problem was, it's the first time I learned it, and the problem was, number one, I'm a male. Number two, it's a romance book. You don't get those unless you already have a big name writing something else. I'm trying the group Book School Social, and I'm really thankful for groups that are really, really progressive in helping people promote their books. And I've learned a lot. I've learned how to set up my author page better. I learned how to set up my blurb better. I learned how to set up many things better. And whether or not I sold any books through them is beside the point, in my opinion, because I learned so much more. And they put it out in a way that actually it's easy to digest for a newbie in book promotion.
So, Jin, the big question is, do you consider yourself an indie? And what does the term being indie mean to you?
I consider myself indie. I've considered myself indie from the very beginning. Even when my fantasy book was accepted by a publisher who ended up just holding my book for 2 years hostage, and I got it back, I still consider myself indie. Just because indie by itself, for me, means fresh and new. And my work is fresh and new. You won't find my style of work out there. The authors are the ones who go out and do rather than just say. They have the freedom, they have the audacity, and they have the stamina to do what needs to be done to keep writing fresh.
Really the same thing that you're doing with romance, in a sense.
I've been trying to get my book posted on other blogs and get other people to read it, and you sit there and some of their descriptions are, we only accept books where it's fantastic, happy endings. We want to get lost in the characters. And I'm like, well, my book's not going to fit there. And finding that genre, and I think there is a genre out there where it's a dark romance where love is love, and there's no masking it, there's no cakes and butterflies. But at the very end, when you get to the end of my story, you're going to see that love is love. And no matter what you go through, no matter how much suffering you put someone through, when it comes down to it, we love you because we love you.
My many thanks to Jin Okubo for that great interview. And this is a good time to remind everybody that you need to go to our website and download the podcast. Or go to iTunes and subscribe there. That would be awesome. We have every interview that we do on this show as an audio podcast, the interview in its entirety. And there's some really great stuff that Jin and I talk about that I just didn't have time to put into the show. So you definitely want to go check that out. And don't worry, for all you Jin Okubo fans, he will be back later in the show. We have a special segment that we are going to be doing every month with Jin. So I hope everybody will enjoy that. That's coming up later, and we'll be right back with more of our show.
We're the hits, and you're watching Go Indie Now.
Once thought you were my dear friend. If you think you've broken me, you better think again. You may have bruised my heart and burned me, but I am a phoenix, I will rise from the ashes. nothing left, not much to give. How to get here? It's hard to find myself in this world I created in my mind. Isolated, too numb to cry, suffocating in the dark, but reaching out to try. The world spins, and I'm still stare at the sea.
Let's keep this world tour going, shall we? And our next stop is Greece. And this little island is rocking out hard and loud as we are joined by Nick Christolis and Dorian Gates. And yes, it's ghost season. Tell me about the story of Ghost Season, how you guys got started, where you've evolved to now, and how you guys are doing.
Well, me and Dorian, we go way back. We knew each other from two different bands that we were each playing, and we just lost each other for a couple of years. And I came across an ad put by Dorian, in which he was searching for members to form a new band with more American, modern-oriented style. And I said, well, why not give it a go? And I contacted him immediately, and we got it going.
Yeah, it was all through an ad, you know, the classic stuff, you know. And, you know, I was searching members, and hey, man, he was. Do you remember me? You know, I used to play there, and you know, you used to play there. I remember you. You know, oh, I was like, great. Let's go out for a coffee, and you know, and we met each other, and you know, okay, you're in. Let's go. Now let's find other members too, and we formed the band.
Yeah,
you know, it's pretty simple.
From the initial lineup, but we underwent some changes, and but here we are.
So. With this, are you guys doing a full CD right now?
Yeah, it'll be a full-length album. You know, because we had one EP, one single for the new album, and now the whole full-length will be out.
Yeah, we kind of went through the initial get to know each other period, in which you try to find which musical direction you want to follow. So we did the EP on that perspective, and I think we have formed a style that we want to develop. So we're doing the full length now. It's really the most natural thing to do right now.
So lost and tired, drowning my time off me. Desire, senseless, you left me bleed.
What is the goal ultimately for your band in terms of how you're going to tour and support your album?
I think that our prime target is to do shows in the States or in the rest of Europe.
I mean, you know, first we want like some people to know about us, you know. It's a classic that every band wants, you know. You have to be known a little bit first, you know, just for people to ask you to come and play in the States or in every like European kind of country or whenever, you know. First, you know, you have to get heard, you know, so people can hear you and, you know, like your music, and then you have your followers, you know, the classic things, how things goes, you know. It's even better now, like 2016, because of the social media and stuff, you know, because of the Facebook and Twitter. It's a powerful tool now. And all these things, you know, Spotify especially, you know, which is really cool.
You guys mentioned social media. How big of a role does it play? How much marketing do you guys do on a daily basis in trying to reach a new audience?
It's a very crucial thing these days to socialize through all this internet stuff. if you don't reach out,
nobody would reach out to you too, you know.
Yeah, it's like you have to promote your own stuff.
And to tell you the truth, you know something, like you go as the wave goes, you know. You must follow, or else, you know, you'll stay back. You don't have a Facebook page today, or whatever else page, or whatever social media, or a Verb Nation, I don't know what the hell. People won't see you.
Yeah.
How people will see you? From the radio stations or from the TV? No, man. You know, so you have to follow this kind of wave, and you know, go as it goes, and follow the whole thing. You know. So,
yeah. And given that the record labels at the moment are not really helpful, even if you get signed, they don't really promote your work. You might get an occasional booking of some shows, or
at least the ones we know. You know.
Yeah, or getting featured in their portfolio. But you have to be your own man these days. You have to be the one that manages your shows, promotes your work. Spreads the word.
It needs.
Yeah, you need to. You need to build your own career. If
I mean, if you don't help yourself, nobody will help you. That's what probably you want to say.
Yeah.
Where'd you guys come up with the name Ghost Season?
He texted me one time. He said, I think the band's name needs to be Ghost Season. No. I'm like, yeah. It's really good.
You know, it's a cool name, I think.
It's great.
Plus, it has this occultish kind of mystic kind of, you know, sense that I really like in a band or in a name or something. I even like movies with this kind of scenario. So, you know, Ghost Season strike very well, man. Because, you know, I mostly talk about love, and I mostly talk about, you know, things that have to do, you know, with feelings. You know, I don't like to write about, you know, wars and politics and that, you know, I think this is a job for politicians to do. You know, my job is to write from, you know, for the matters of the heart mostly, you know.
So does the songwriting start with the lyrics, or do you come up with a riff and then you just go, hey, look, I came up with this riff, and you got something for it?
We come up with the music first, and then we try to do vocal lines that are really vague on top, and then we go into the refining process, which is you know, doing a riff that's more suitable. And Dorian starts writing lyrics that are go along with the vocal lines that we've layered over the music.
Simple procedure.
Yeah. And we usually start up with a riff, and we develop on that riff, you know, how the
lyrics
the verse will go, you know, if there will be a bridge, if there will be a solo part, if there will be a harmony part that's really different from the rest, and you know, that kind of stuff. Lyrics are actually the last thing we do. It's the cherry on top.
Your artwork is striking on the album, on your t-shirts. Who does the artwork for you guys?
Well, the first artwork, the first EP, you know, the Ghost Slack Hair EP, we had a guy from here, an artwork kind of guy, a designer. So the second, the artwork for the single, I made.
It's all Dorian.
Yeah. Plus, you know, I have finished the artwork for the full length, and I think it will be pretty fucking amazing, man. You'll see.
Yeah, he was so like.
I spent days. Man.
Yeah,
like,
he was
really.
like, we need to do cover art for the new single, and I'm like, you do Photoshop stuff.
Yeah.
Why don't you do it?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. We need something more professional. I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't believe myself back then, you know, because I didn't know too much.
It was great, you know, it was great, and it was really something that expressed us as a whole.
So let me ask you guys the big question. that I ask everybody, and that is, I know that you guys consider yourselves indie. We've already talked about that a little bit. So tell me, what do you think the term indie means, and what does it mean to you?
Being indie, I think that right now, if you're not in a major label and you're not really making other people any money, you're indie.
What can people expect when they go to see a Go Season show?
The show, it will be, it will be, it will be a classic show, like a seasons after kind of show, Lately we made our own stage banner, big banner and stuff, and we're a young band, we're new, so
it's pretty typical stuff.
It's pretty
we
typical.
Just want to perform as best as we can.
Yeah. To tell the truth, Ghost Season is the season we live now. That's how I put it in my mind back then, 2013, when I created the whole, created the whole band, and things were pretty shitty, in general, and here, in Europe, in America, in Canada, in everywhere, economic-wise, or in wars and all this shit, and I was like, this thing is like a how do you call it in like a Chernobyl, I had my mind in this Chernobyl kind of destroyed country or something where you can see only ghosts and shadows and figures of people who aren't really there, so I was like, oh shit, it's a ghost season kind of stuff, and it was really mystic and really occultish kind of, and I grabbed the whole idea from that kind of perspective. And I was like, season it will be,
the austerity in Greece really created something that's like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Go Season epitomizes being indie. Their passion is unwielding. Their drive and focus is relentless. And they're going to get where they want to go. I mean, you could hear the love. You could see it in their face. Their musicianship, on top of everything else, is top-notch and stellar. You definitely want to go check them out. Go to our website, get all their links, and follow them on all the social media sites. You won't regret it. Also, go to their website. They have a great merchandise page with some awesome looking t-shirts. And if you're looking for some new gear, why not represent Ghost Indie? So I alluded to it earlier. We have a new segment on our show that we're going to be doing each and every month from here on out. It's a review segment, and it's with Mr. Jin Okubo. Jin is one of the most avid readers I've ever met. And he also is one of the most outspoken people I've ever met. So it seemed like a perfect fit. And I think he's going to do great. And he's going to give us some great insights and introduce us to a lot of great indies and a lot of great indie books.
Hello everyone, welcome to GoIndieNow. I'm Jin Okubo. I'm over here in Japan. I am the author of Love. I'm the author of Kaoru in Love's Shadow. I have a couple of romance books, but that does not matter today. What matters today is this, The First by A. Claire Everward. It is such an amazing book. It is an awesome book. This book is the Da Vinci Code wrapped around the Bourne series, and it is everything you want. It's got drama, it's got suspense, it's got action. It's an amazing book. I recommend it to everybody. I'm giving it 5 stars. I'm writing a review for this in Goodreads. I'm writing a review for this in Amazon. I recommend anybody who loves action, suspense, drama to really get into this book and really read it. It's an amazing story. It's very, very well written. It's very, very well set. And when you get into the sceneries, the world, when you get into the characters, you really, really see the hard work that it takes to make such a really, really good story. You're not left in the dark about where you're going with this book as you're reading it. But again, she's not revealing to you what's coming up ahead. When I read certain books, I always get the feeling, oh, I know what's going to happen, and then it happens. That was not the case with this book. Of course, I said it's like the Bourne series and the Da Vinci Code. It does not copy from them, but it does give you the core action and suspense that those stories give you. It is that well written. A very, very great author, a very, very great writer, A. Claire Everward. The first, go out and get yourself a copy. This is an amazing book, and help support indies.
I honestly can't think of a better segue than that, because you're about to meet A. Claire Everward and her sister Kate Everward. They are a sister team that has produced a novel and are starting a publishing business, and they complete our world tour as they are currently in Israel. And I got to talk to them. This is a great conversation, so enjoy our chat with the Everwards.
Chat.
At.
Chat.
Let me ask you a question, Claire. How much of what you've experienced in your life there is in your writing? Is it everything that's about in your writing, or do you just take bits and pieces of it?
Wow. Okay, I can tell you none of it is in my. It's not. I don't write about it. There's enough writing that comes from. I mean, I think writing should be. If you read, you should be able to use your reading to escape your life. Okay. Obviously, in my life, I intend to write certain things that will be more. That will be more a reflection of what our lives have been like. But again, I write, I escape. People read. People want to escape. If you live in poverty, you don't want to read about poverty. If you know what I mean. One thing that I really, really want is that people will be able to. That people will be able to. Hello. That people will be able.
Internet's crashed.
I really want. I really, really want people to have fun also. So I can tell you this. In my writing, there are certain things, certain directions, small things, and or perhaps the way I create characters that are a reflection of what I have been through in life and what I see, but not only in Israel, but in the world. One thing that is perhaps not characteristic of people worldwide, not just here, in the United States and everywhere, is that people usually watch their local news, read a local newspaper. Something that I tend to do and have done for years is watch international news. I watch news in the United States and in Europe. I watch Sky News and CNN and BBC and all kinds of news and Canadian news and German news, and so and that means that you see a lot of what happens in the world, good and bad, in every part of the world. And if you're a human being, that kind of tends to bring certain feelings up inside you. It could be happiness, it could be anger, it could be fear, a lot of fear. And I can tell you that, yes, that is subtly reflected in what I write.
Book a series, or are you writing a different book with a different subject matter?
The first is book one of not of a series. There will be another book for sure. So the first is out there. The next book is actually the first in a series. The one after that is also the first of a series, but that's because Kate really liked it and that's what she wanted. There. But what you asked about is what I see is my life reflected in the book. show probably more in. Am I watching the news too much? Will probably be reflected more in the next book, less in the one after that. Yeah.
All right. Very well.
Cool.
So, Kate, let me ask you, since you are Claire's PR person per se, how would you describe her book to someone who's never heard of it?
Yeah, I usually just say...
No spoilers, because I want people to have fun, to enjoy.
No, I'm usually, because it's very easy to spoil, I'm very careful. Usually I spend most of the time just convincing them, just then go buy it. And then you'll find out. But I think that the curiosity comes from the mix of genres, I think, because I keep saying that it's, in a way, it's realist fantasy / suspense. Now the question then comes is, oh wait, but what's realist fantasy? Isn't that a contradiction? And I say, yeah, it's a beautiful storyline, but there is a touch of something that is fantastic, something that will take you to another, to another level. And because it's also suspense, it does make people quite curious. And there's a heroine, and that's also something that is very, very important these days. I still think that there are not enough strong people. It's funny, but actually in the old days there were more strong women than today, but we're slowly getting there. So here there's also a heroine, and there's all the elements that you love in a good book.
Your cover is just as curious as your description, and that's really fascinating. You pick it up and you look at it and you go, huh, I wonder what this is really about. So you did a really good job in dawning that curiosity right off the bat. That was really well done.
And I want to say that for me it was a shock because it's funny. One thing that Kate did is that she didn't show me the cover until the very, very late stages. So it was a shock. All of a sudden, for one thing, it made it completely. It's real. Okay, the book is coming out, and oh my God, it's like hide under the desk or something. But the thing is that it was a shock to me too. So yeah. It's a good cover, by the way. It's also reflective of what's inside.
Most important things, I think, in selling or marketing a debut novel is not necessarily selling the book, but it's selling the author. Mm-hmm. Because a reader rightfully won't necessarily trust a new author. So you talk about the author, and I talk about Claire, and I talk about her experiences, and I talk about mainly how we took these books and invested basically everything in the best cover possible, in the best editing possible, in order to make it into something that will be a wow and enjoyable to read.
The funniest thing, when I read the final of the first, and this is after, like I got the edited version, and I edited it then myself and prepared the final and then read the final, and then I read it again on the ebook to make sure everything is in place, and I was like, wow, wait a minute, did I write that?
It's amazing. Like I'll look at a line of dialogue or a sentence and just go, I can't believe I wrote something like that. I didn't know I had that in me.
And I'll tell you one thing, that think about what you're feeling right now, or that smile you have on your face. That's something I hope that we will never lose. That's the one thing you never want to lose, the ability to say, oh my God, I wrote that.
Kate, let's bring you back in the fold here. And we were talking about, I was asking the question about, saying how internationals, people, talk to me about from the international realm that the internet has been a godsend in terms of changing the landscape and bringing everybody in. And how much of SEO, social media, do you is that your whole marketing strategy basically?
It's not the whole marketing strategy, but it's
Definitely a large part. The internet definitely dropped the borders, and it's amazing because you can really be who you want to be, create the persona, and just they don't necessarily know who you are, so you can. You can introduce yourself in a whole new way, and they immediately accept you because that's what they know. And later on, obviously, they know more about you. But yeah, I think I started with our marketing strategy. I started with social media. Basically, it was the thing that terrified me the most because we're both we're introverts. So. It was very difficult for both of us to just, come out and say to the world, "Hi, here we are, we exist," when basically we don't really talk to people about ourselves. And here we had to really expose ourselves, and it's not only exposing yourself. You're an author or selling an author, so you have to wear your heart on a sleeve. You have to be honest about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And we really just, in a way, dived in and entered groups that held experienced authors and experienced marketers in this field, etc. And it was the smartest thing that we did. From that, it was well, I won't say easy, but slowly it was easier to suddenly build our own author platform. After several months, I realized that we have an author platform. I mean, that we have our Facebook, we have Google+, we have Twitter, we have these things. We have a website that we sat and built after learning from others. Still building. Still building. Still learning. We'll have a lot of changes. But definitely the internet exposed us to people from all around the world. And it was so funny because right from the beginning we also realized that there's a lot that we can also help others because we're internationals. And that's something that I never expected. I was sure I would beg people for help just to learn about this entire world, and I realized that we're not so far behind.
Well, here's the big question that I ask all my guests, and I know that you both consider yourselves indie. Obviously, you didn't have a choice in that matter, but tell me what it means to you to be indie and what you think that means.
It's just new ways. It's a new way because, I mean, you know about what Kate said about reinventing the wheel? Well, you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're changing it a bit. And the nice thing about being indie is that about this world is we can actually change. Got freedom, isn't it like that? Freedom, the small things. It's new. It's just indie is like. For me, it's a synonym for new. It's just everything in you. Everything is because you're not big and inflexible, traditional, small and new. The thing about small and new is you can find your own way and you can do new things and you can do things different, and it's amazing. It's simply amazing. I agree with that. It's the matter of new, and freedom definitely comes to mind because it's the tradition. I think that the traditional publishing, and I have a lot of respect for traditional publishing, they're also slowly learning the importance of self-publishers. And I've seen that they have created these little imprints, and they're working with more self-publishers, and they're working with more indie authors, which shows that they're also understanding that. But it's true, we have more flexibility. We don't have to work according to the same rules, and we can decide a lot of things. I would like to see things in the world change. I would like this world to be slightly friendlier. I would like people to be friendlier. I would like people to see people for who they are. Definitely. We stopped feeling alone somewhere along the way because we were definitely
a part of something big that you can do from far away.
There are some things out there you just can't explain. Worlds that came before us. Worlds that are around us, beyond us. There are worlds within our imagination. And we aim to unlock and understand how they begin. That's our show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our little trip around the world this month. I wanted to end the show talking about something that happened that was big in the indie world, especially in the indie publishing world. There was a company called Booktrope that did a lot for indie publishing. They did a lot for indie authors, and they were considered a model in how to run a publishing business, indie style, basically. While they had the right concept and the right idea, the execution, it lacked a certain something. And it was very evident in their business model because in the end, it just couldn't work out. They couldn't sustain the volume and the sheer effort it takes to run a publishing company. And it's really, really a difficult thing. And they did it better than most have done in the past. It's just a lesson that, that while there is ways of doing things and we can learn from bigger publishing companies and bigger entities in our worlds, in our artistry worlds, there is also unconventional methods and ways that you can succeed. And you can do it on your own, and you could also be helping others. And this Booktrope incident is one example of lessons that we can take from what our experiences are. But one of the things that I want to make very clear about what has happened is that Booktrope tried. And you can never succeed until you fail. And I'm sure the folks who were behind it are going to get back on that horse and figure out another way, another opportunity to get this back and running. Because they did have something. And it just takes that little spark of something. And then you go indie now. All right, we'll see you next month.